This is the Vic Feazell Show podcast, sponsored by Moroso Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Pinewood Coffee Roasters, and the law offices of Vic Feazell. Man, these people hitchhiked. They hitchhiked all the way to California. You know, Jim Adams says, well, now with Henry's driving habits, Henry didn't drive that much, you know.
Right.
He seldom had a car that would start. He couldn't afford gas. When he bought gas, he'd had to borrow the money from Reuben More. But he was quite a hitchhiker.
Yeah, he wasn't too shabby.
He and
man.
Becky, he and Frida hitchhiked all the way from Florida to California. And then they were going to hitchhike from Montague County in Texas back to Florida. And they get up close to Denton.
Correct.
And Henry starts talking to Becky and saying, I'll call her Becky here because that's what Henry called her, and said, I don't want to go to Florida. I like it in Ringold. I want to go back to Reuben More. And she didn't want to. And Henry said he decided to go up to the store and buy a few things, and he did. They both walked up to the store, and he said, when I came out of the store, I saw Becky getting into a Red Ball freight truck with a truck driver.
Right.
And the truck takes off down the road. Henry tells a story about dropping what he had and running and chasing it like a scene out of a movie.
Chasing after him till San Antonio.
Oh, I'm not even going to go to that.
It just
That's
gets
crazy.
kind of weird, and there's a bunch of theories, and a
That's
bunch of
real
people
weird.
say a bunch of different things, but
No, I'm talking about just this one moment in time here near Denton where he sees the Red Ball freight truck.
Yeah.
At least that's Henry's story.
and that's what he told you personally, right?
That's what he told me personally. That was his story all along. That's what he told Reuben More when he got back to the house of prayer.
Yes.
Because he was back the very next day, and he says, she got in a truck with a truck driver. I'm going to go try to find her. He made up a bunch of stories later, like the San Antonio thing, and I hear she's in San Antonio. I hear she's in New Mexico, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. That bothers me because I think those were lies, and it does bother me.
Yeah.
You know?
So interesting part of the story. We'll kind of leave that as it is, but it's good to note because that's the last time we hear about Frida Powell.
Yeah.
At all.
At all.
So she's out of the picture now.
She is out of the picture.
So Henry returns. So Henry does return back to Reuben More, and he just continues to work with Reuben, doing the roofing jobs and odd jobs around there, living at the House of Prayer.
Right, and he's not on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
No law enforcement is looking at him. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's some kind of parole violation out of Michigan or something because he left and went to Florida without telling anybody.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Weird.
Something.
And then also that there was an incident where he had a relative that had a truck that didn't run, and Henry fixed that truck, spent his own money fixing it, gave the guy like a little bit of money for the broken truck. And then when he had it fixing and running, his relative sees it, gets jealous, calls a cop, and tells them that Henry stole his truck.
Well, that's messed up.
Oh man, you're dealing with some really genetic deficient people here.
Genetically deficient
We're
individuals.
talking about picking a banjo in Deliverance. You know.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Some of our listeners may not understand that reference. If not, Google Deliverance, a great movie with Burt Reynolds from back in the 60s, I think. But it's still a classic.
It's that old.
It's pretty old. Maybe 70s.
It's like Easy Rider.
Yeah, I think I was in college when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, man, Peter Fonda died recently.
I know.
Did
That's
you read
what
that?
triggered my mind. I'm like thinking about classic movies and
Yeah.
Fonda.
So sad. So anyway.
So things are pretty calm. He's back.
Things are
Back at
calm.
the House of Prayer. No one's freaking out.
Better than Henry's had it in his life.
And there's some notation from witnesses that also lived it that say, he was pretty heartbroken that she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, he
would-
always talked about it. He would go out at night and look for her. After he got that Ford Galaxy,
Right.
he would go out and look for her,
Right.
you know?
This is true. And he, to talk about the Ford Galaxy a little bit, someone who lived out there as well, their mother died.
Mm-hmm.
And this gentleman was left the car. And he didn't want the car. So Reuben More and another gentleman bought the car off him for like $100 or something to
Real
give
cheap.
to Henry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't a great car.
No,
It
they had
was-
to do some work on it. Yeah.
Right. But they wanted Henry to have some wheels. So Henry was actually given a car by Reuben More, another gentleman. And that car is going to come into play just a little bit later. So everything's pretty calm until September 16th of 1982. And so what we know about September 16th is that housekeeper you just mentioned that goes out 5 days a week to, clean the house, which didn't sound like they're doing a very good job, shows up around 3:35, and that's the last time Kate Rich is seen alive. Period. So this is where we start to spin into the weird tale of Kate Rich. So here we are, 3:35, September 16th, 82. Housekeeper goes out, sees Kate Rich, cleans the house, leaves. And then that's it. No more Kate Rich.
And she tells the sisters, one of the sisters, that this was the last time I saw your mom. When I came back out, she wasn't here. The animals are still locked in the house. Her purse is gone.
Right.
And she ain't here. She was here yesterday, but she ain't here now.
Yep.
So apparently it would have been shortly after the 16th that she let the sisters know, I haven't seen your mom.
Right.
Yeah, because a report was filed with Conway by one of the sisters on September 18th.
Right.
2 days after that.
Formal missing person report.
I knew that date sounded familiar, September 16th, 1982,
Why is that?
because I was indicted on September 16th, 1986.
Ah.
Yeah, 4 years to the date.
Yay.
Kate Rich goes missing, which starts the drama with Henry Lucas.
Dun, 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 dun,
And
dun.
then Vic Feazell gets indicted, 9/16/86, and then I was put in handcuffs 9/17/86.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So 4 years for this to unfold, all the way from Kate Rich disappearing to the
To
handcuffs.
Vic Feazell disappearing.
Yeah, they tried to.
They tried.
They tried. Boy, did they try.
So interesting thing about September 16th, too. So Kate's missing. But what we know, too, is that exact same day, right about 7 p.m., Henry goes to Kate Rich's house. And he tells some people at the house of prayer, hey, I'm going to pick up Kate Rich to bring her back for church. I'm going to go see if she wants to go to church. So they say he drives out at 7 p.m. and he comes back at 9 p.m. And he says that Kate Rich wasn't there.
Kate wasn't home, so I just drove around looking for Becky, is what he says, which I think is kind of weird. But
Kind of weird.
yeah, I mean, but then, the way you're telling it here, there's 2 missing hours, but that's because Gilbert Beagle says he went at 6.
Yeah, so even the times are funky.
Yeah, somebody else said he went at 7.
Yeah, I've got one at 7.
Yeah, and then somebody else even said he went at 4 and got back earlier than 7.
Oh, great. So what we know is same day, Henry
Same
goes
day.
out to take her to church, but she's not there.
She's not there.
She's not there.
He said nobody is home.
Nobody's home.
Nobody's home.
So he gets back to House of Prayer, and he tells some people there, hey, I'm going to go towards Dallas, and, I guess to look for Becky or who knows why. But he says he'll be back the next morning for work at 5 a.m., and he doesn't show up.
He doesn't show. And that bothers me. I got to say, that bothers me.
It's very un-Henry-like.
It's un-Henry because Henry was a good worker. Reuben More enjoyed having Henry around because until that day, he had been a reliable worker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's one thing you can say about Henry is the dude always worked.
He always worked.
He always worked, whether it be selling scrap, doing, plumbing jobs, doing roofing. I mean, the dude, or even working on cars. I mean, he was always working, trying to make a living.
Yeah, he was good with his hands. He knew how to do things. He could fix stuff.
He could fix.
He could fix stuff. Yeah. But did he kill Kate Rich?
And that's the question. That's the question.
And if Phil Ryan, and I've said this before, if Phil Ryan wasn't involved in this, I'd say definitely Henry did not kill Kate. but I have a certain amount of trust factor with Phil that I hope I don't lose as we continue to go through this. You know, Phil's an elected official. He's the sheriff out in Decatur. I would love to have Phil on this show. I'd like to ask him some of these questions in a
awesome
very
to talk to him about
respectful and polite way.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't cross-examine him. I just like to have some of the holes filled in.
Yeah.
You know? So
Because
I always found him to be a stand-up guy. I did, and I could be wrong about that.
And what I'll say is, going through this case in specific to Vic, we do have a lot of reports. I mean, a lot of work was done by him on this case to figure out what on earth happened.
It was.
But it's also...
But also Conway was there.
Yeah.
And Conway was cut from the same cloth as Boutwell.
Yeah.
And they were friends. And they talked on the phone a lot. Not during this time. Not until Henry stood up and confessed to Kate Rich. But I'm saying their methods and their tactics were similar.
Right.
They were your old-timey big gun sheriff, you know, wear it down by your knee kind of guy, you know? Yeah, old-timey.
What?
Yeah, wear your gun down by your knee, old-timey kind of sheriff with a...
Where do you get this stuff from?
With a 5-pound pistol, yeah.
Okay. I don't know where you come up with this stuff.
You know,
but...
law enforcement started changing there about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know. Even the guns changed. Most of the policemen don't even carry revolvers anymore.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
they carry those 9mm.
The semi-autos.
Yeah.
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
So, interesting thing. So, Henry, again, so on the 16th, same day, she goes missing, goes out. He comes back, tells the people, man, I couldn't find her anywhere. I don't know where she is. And he says, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. I'm going to go head out. And he doesn't show up. So, he doesn't show up for a few days. He's not on any radar at all. Mm-hmm. So 2 days later, on the 18th, the missing person report is put out there by Sheriff Conway. The family says, oh man, she's gone. We don't know what's going on. And like you said, her health was so bad to where it's a huge concern because she is so old and ill that she can't be out there alone.
Old, ill, malnourished, and yet overweight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2 days to the 20th, September 20th, a gentleman and woman by the name of Bill and Deborah Smith pick up Lucas hitchhiking, ready for this one, in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah.
So here's Lucas, 16th he leaves, says he's going to Dallas. On the 20th, he's hitchhiking in Albuquerque. The car's, where's the car, that he was driving off in? And he's just in Albuquerque, freaking New Mexico.
And this is the car that's later found abandoned in Needles, California.
Correct. So 1 day later, on September 21st, San Bernardino County Sheriffs find his 1965 Ford Galaxy car abandoned. Weird.
So he was in Montague County on September 16th. That night, he says, I'm leaving, but I'll be back tomorrow. And he wasn't heard from again until the 20th.
The 20th, when he's picked up by a husband and wife.
Now, according to Henry, and I've got sworn testimony of this from Henry from testimony during the El Paso case.
Okay.
That was the Apodaca case, if anybody wants to look it up. And we're going to talk about that case someday. Bob Prince really bragged on that case. He said there was over 118 points of corroboration.
Wow.
That pretrial lasted weeks.
Really?
Yes, I was out there for 2 or 3 days of it testifying. And by the end, the judge had knocked out all 118 points.
Oh, my Lord.
And suppressed the confession.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The DA had to drop the charges against Lucas. Jim Adams was so mad. The Rangers were so mad that they ran somebody against this judge.
No way.
Yes, they did. Just like they ran two against me. I had an opponent in my primary race, and I had an opponent in the general.
Wow.
Yeah, a Democrat and a Republican ran against me.
Get him out of there.
Yeah, they were trying so hard to get me out. And they did the same thing to Brunson Moore, the judge out in El Paso.
Wow.
And he lost the case.
Oh.
They ran the whole campaign on this man let a mass murderer go free.
No way.
Yes, way. Yeah, they were so mad at him. I mean, he stood up and did what was right based on the evidence.
Is he still alive?
I don't know. We'll have to check on that. I know that Rod Ponton is still alive. I'd love to talk to Rod Ponton. Rod Ponton was court appointed to represent Henry on the El Paso case after Gary Richardson went down there.
Yeah, he's like the DA, right? Out in like Alpine Marfa.
DA or county attorney, something like that now.
Yeah.
He
Cool.
oversees the Marfa lights.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
And for our listeners, please look into the Marfa lights. Are
Yes.
they just headlights? Are they UFOs?
What are they?
What are they?
Google the Marfa lights. You know, Marfa is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a long way from Waco.
It's a huge drive.
It's
But
way
isn't
out in
that,
West Texas. It's in
Big Bend.
Yeah.
Well, in the
Pecos
Big Bend National
County,
Park.
out around Pecos. You ever hear of Judge Roy Bean?
No.
Oh, The Law West of the Pecos. There's a great movie. The late great Judge Roy Bean or something like that. Paul Newman plays Roy Bean.
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman. Oh man, it's a good movie. Well worth the watch. But it was about the early days of Pecos and then Marfa, which is right close to Pecos. I knew the federal judge from Pecos as well. Back then, he had been a college roommate of Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, no way.
That's how damn old I am. And I knew this guy.
We have to carbon date you.
Yeah, he was a federal judge. I tried a case in his courtroom one time.
Mm-hmm.
He had a strange procedure. If he didn't like what a lawyer was saying, he had a squirt bottle that would squirt a stream of water about 20 feet, and he'd shoot it at you.
What?
Right in court.
You're kidding.
Yes. No. If he didn't like it, instead of objecting or saying, he'd just start squirting
That's
water at you like you were a
hilarious.
cat.
Oh, man. Well, that's...
Yeah.
You can't do that now.
No, you can't do that now. He was one of a kind. I'll think of his name in a minute, but I really liked him. But he was Lyndon Johnson's college roommate.
My God.
And that's how he got appointed to the federal bench. He was a lawyer, and his old college roommate, Lyndon Johnson, appointed him to the federal bench, but stuck him out in Pecos.
West Texas, man. That's a little...
He did a little bit of visiting judging, though, because I tried a case with him here in Waco.
Oh, cool.
Where he
Come back
was
to
a visiting
civilization.
judge in the federal court in Waco. Yeah.
God.
So they beat Brunson Moore.
Yeah.
In the race for judge, and they got rid of him for throwing out the Apodaca case.
Wow. You were talking about, so what was said in the El Paso case about him? Was it that he was trying to make his way back to California to find Becky?
He said
is that why he was headed New Mexico?
It's even more than that. Yeah, this is the only place where Henry's driving habits might come in if you count 2 days of driving.
Yeah.
He got in his car and he drove all the way to Jacksonville, Florida.
Really?
Because he said he thought Becky might be back with Otis.
Interesting.
Yeah, living back in her old house. So he drives all the way back. He meets with Otis. Otis says, "No, I hadn't seen her. I hadn't seen her since y'all left together." And he said, "But the law was here looking for you on that parole violation."
Ooh.
Yeah. So Henry says, "I better get out of here."
Yeah.
So he gets in his car, and he then starts heading for Jack Smart's house.
Okay, out in Southern California.
Now, I don't know why these guys just didn't pick up a phone and call. Now, I know they didn't have cell phones back then.
I don't know.
And Otis probably didn't even own a phone.
No way.
Probably didn't even have one in the house.
No way.
Which wasn't odd. I remember back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I knew a lot of people that didn't have phones.
Huh.
Didn't have phones or TVs.
What did they do with their time?
Macrame, man.
Wait, what?
That's what I did. I studied, read, and did macrame.
Okay.
I macrameed a couch one time.
What is that?
It's tying little knots to make designs. You can make plant hangers or belts, things like that.
I think my generation had boondoggle. Is where the little plastic things you kind of weaved it into.
It's got to be popular
crap.
back during the hippie times.
During the hippie times.
Sit around, talk, and do your macrame. It's like sitting and knitting.
Just go and whittle. Go out there and whittle a bit.
Kinda.
Have you ever done any whittling in your day?
So Henry jumps in the car. Yeah, I used to.
I used to
Henry
pick-
jumps in the car and heads for California.
Okay.
He doesn't pick up the phone and call Jack Smart.
Right.
He gets in the car and heads for California.
Okay. So to recap the dates, he leaves on the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So he heads to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Not there. So he heads to California, and his car then breaks down on the 20th. So basically 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th.
Breaks
20th,
down in
breaks
New
down.
Mexico.
Or California breaks down.
Oh, yeah, breaks down in California.
Yep.
And then he starts hitchhiking back.
Right. Okay. And then he's picked up in Albuquerque, on the 20th. So his car probably breaks down like the 19th, 20th, somewhere in there, enough to where he's able to get to New Mexico. Okay. So picked up on September 20th by Bill and Deborah Smith in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They then drive to Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, basically just kind of doing odd jobs too. So he's basically staying with these folks for just about a month almost. And then he shows back up with Reuben More on October 17th, 82.
Yeah.
Trippy. So, he's out and about, but at least we can tell exactly where he is with the exception of a couple days in that time frame.
He was asking El Paso, how long did it take you to get to Florida? He said, well, I drove all the rest of that day and that night, and I got into Jacksonville at 6, between 7 o'clock the following day. And then I traveled all that night and all the next day, about 7 o'clock, and then I got in Jacksonville. And so I look up Otis, and find out where he's at and everything. And I said he wasn't living on 7th Street anymore, so I had to run around and look for him. And so he hid me out in an apartment over there in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And he said the police were still looking for me in Jacksonville on account of Becky. That's what it was, on account of Becky.
Right.
So I guess they knew that he had left. CPS must have turned him into the police on that. And I said, well, I guess I'll head on back, head back to Texas tomorrow, And he said, well, and Otis said, all right. And I asked Otis if he had heard from Becky, and he said he hadn't. And so then I headed for California.
Okay.
And this is his sworn testimony out in El Paso.
Okay. So that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And his wonderful car busts down. He starts hitchhiking back with Bill and Deborah Smith, and they basically go and do odd jobs for quite some time.
Yeah, they picked him up in, you call it San Juan, New Mexico. The locals, I've been there, call it San Juan. Kind of one of those things like Guadalupe. Potato.
Or in Austin, what is it? Manor Road. They call it Manor. What did I say last week? I said
Bear. You said
Bexar.
Bexar.
Bexar. Bexar.
Yeah, that's Bear County. That's where San Antonio
That's
is.
just ridiculous. Bexar.
Well, there's a lot.
Bear. Where do you even get that?
There's a lot of French and Spanish influence in some of the old names around here.
Weird. So that's our time frame.
And
but in the meantime,
he travels around with this old couple.
Yes.
And they don't get hurt.
Nope.
They don't feel
They're
threatened.
quite fine. And as a matter of fact, ready for this one? So while they're out and about, Reuben More actually gets a phone call on October 10th, 82 from Henry saying, hey, I'm in Indiana doing some work with this Bill and Deborah Smith. Have you heard from Becky? And Reuben says no. He then says, maybe she's in Florida, and basically that he's working a job, and he'd like to return to Texas to work for Reuben again. And he asks Reuben, hey, man, if I come back, will you give me a job? And I'm going to be traveling with this Bill and Deborah Smith. Do you mind if Bill comes to work for you too? And Reuben says yes. So here we are.
Reuben says, yeah, bring him on. More the better.
And
More the merrier. Reuben was, everything I've read about Reuben, he was a decent guy. He was always loaning money to these guys.
Well, and speaking of that, 5 days later, 6 days later, I should say, on October 16th, Reuben More wires Lucas $100 to a truck stop in Missouri in order to get back to Texas. So Reuben actually wires him the money for them to travel back to Texas.
He did. And an interesting thing about that, if my memory is correct, Henry only asked for $50. But Reuben was afraid that 50 wouldn't be enough and went ahead and sent him 100.
Man, that's really nice of him.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Now, Reuben's wife, Faye, and he had only been married to Faye maybe 5 years when she was a new wife. His other wife had died. Faye didn't care for Henry that much. She liked him in the beginning, but after Hound Dog Conway started hound dogging Henry, Hound Dog started bird dogging Henry.
Some things are exactly as they are described.
That's exactly true. Because Conway followed Henry all over. Followed him all the way out to California one time. Followed him up into Oklahoma one time. I think I've mentioned
persistent.
Conway lost his re-election for sheriff because he had spent so much county money chasing Henry Lucas. Yeah. But then he got Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award from the Sheriff's Association the following year for capturing Henry Lucas.
Capturing fugitive. So that was cool, though. So Reuben More wires him money, and sure enough, on October 17th, there he is. Lucas is back working for Reuben More, and with him are this Bill and Deborah Smith. So they're there.
And what's the date of this?
So this is October 17th. They arrive back.
October 17th of 82.
82. So they're back.
October 17th. Now that's interesting, don't you think? Because where was he with that couple? Missouri?
So they were on the 16th, they were in Joplin, Missouri, when they get the wire transfer to a truck stop in Joplin. That's where he gets the cash. And then they start making their way back to Texas.
But he had been with this couple for about a month.
Yes.
And they had never felt
20th.
threatened. He hadn't killed them. As far as they knew, he hadn't stolen from them.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been safe.
And he actually got them jobs.
And Kate Rich had been missing for a month.
Yes.
For a month. Now, why would Henry go back? Why would Henry go back into this situation if he had killed Kate Rich?
It's a good question, man.
He calls and says, "Hey, I'm out of the trap right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys let me come stick my foot in it?"
Yeah, really.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Now, Henry wasn't the sharpest, no pun intended, he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. But he wasn't stupid either.
Yeah.
Why would he go back into that situation and let Conway start making his life miserable if he had really killed her?
Right.
That does not compute to me.
It doesn't make sense. I'll definitely agree with you on that, Vic. It just does not make sense.
Why would he do that? This was a guy who could have found a job anywhere because he would work for a little bit of nothing.
Yeah.
He was willing to do anything, whether it was collecting scrap metal or cleaning crap off the floor.
Yeah.
Or doing plumbing work, fixing cars, doing roofing. I'm telling you, you walk onto a job site with those skills, somebody's going to give you a job.
Yeah.
It may not be with benefits, it may not be permanent, but you're going to work that day.
Yeah, man.
Why would Henry come back to Montague County within the shadow of the house where they claim he had kidnapped and killed somebody?
Doesn't make sense.
Like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast channel. Look at the video and listen to the podcast. And email us your questions and comments. Our email address is promo@withvic.com.
This is Texas singer-songwriter Brian Burns, and I'm here to tell you that my friend Vic Feazell has a new phone number. It's 1-877-948-4842. That spells with Vic, 877 with Vic. Now, we hope you're never in a car wreck, friend, but if you are, don't call for just any lawyer. Call for Vic Feazell at 877 with Vic. With
principal offices in Waco and Austin, Texas.